that's a really good example of Christian believers living in a community. Because again, in the end, we're all the same. But there's a whole lot of differences in between. There's a whole lot of differences. And sometimes, again, those things can cause trouble. But, he's saying a whole lot of things. Just a couple things that I want to say for us is, first, we need to be willing to enter the world of others who have radically different cultures than we do. It's that's a challenge, trying to enter into the world. Not just hang out with them, but enter into their world. To become part of them a little bit and experience what they're experiencing. Well, you see life from a totally different view. You start to see things from their view, and it's just like, whoa, I never knew this kind of a world existed, and because we never stepped into their shoes before. But this is very important for our church, because we have a number of ethnicities here. As I look around the room, we come in all different colors, and different races and different origins, and that's a really great thing. But again, sometimes there's these barriers, and I think it's really important for us to be intentional about entering the world of other people. Second, we need to be secure with who we are. We need to understand who we are. Like, if we don't quite have that reference point of who we are and be secure with who we are, when we enter other people's world, it's going to probably affect us, And again, for us to really feel secure with who we are, so sometimes it does. That cannot be broken unless we're in these communities, these small groups of people. For me, I was raised, I'm half white, half Mexican. And, growing up, I didn't really feel like a Mexican. I didn't look like them or talk like them. And for Americans, I really didn't feel like an American either. Because, my opinion of Americans were that they were rude, they were snobs, they were, they were just, they were just rude. I'm not like you guys, So I didn't feel like any of them. So growing up, I didn't know who I was. Am I Mexican? Am I white? Well, I'm neither. And a lot of people, actually, I thought it was just me, but I found out that a lot of people are like this when they start to, me, I was kind of immersed in two different cultures. Some people, when they started to get immersed in other cultures, they say, it's almost like a culture shock for them. It's maybe sometimes they're questioning who they are. And I've realized that I'm not alone in this, especially in LA. I know there's a lot of people. Japanese people come from Japan all the way to the U.S. and all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And, it's just this huge, we really need to be comfortable with who we are, but sometimes that does not happen except unless we're in that community of believers of other ethnicities. And if we don't work these two things out, being comfortable with ourselves and getting into the world of others, there is going to remain these barriers between these different ethnicities that are here in this church, as he talks about in this book, that were barriers for their church, for them to grow. Our church is built on a multicultural platform, and it's very important for us to overcome these things. I guess a really good example of a lot of times it's communication too. I guess I can give an example. I used to lead a Japanese small group here at the church, which we're gonna have start having a lot more Japanese people here because we got a buddy program with a Japanese program. So it's really interesting for you guys to start to interact with them. But it's really interesting when you get into a culture that's not your own. Again, I was born and raised in the U.S., so I'm kind of American by culture, and there was quite a bit of communication hurdles to get over. I'll give an example. This one really didn't happen, but it's very similar of what had happened many times. Like, let's say I walk up to a Japanese person and I'm like, hey, you want to go to the movies? Yeah. That means yes. Hey, you want to go to the movies? Yeah. That means maybe. Hey, you want to go to the movies? Yeah. That means no. It's like the word yes can mean yes, maybe, or no. It depends on how you say it. It's the way you say it is just as important. Now, that's not a bad thing, because us Americans, we have a problem with being rude. And Japanese people, they want to show honor and respect to people. So you don't want to slap the person in the face. You don't want to be rude to them. So you want to give the person honor and respect. So you don't say it the way it is. You're a little more kind in the way you say it. I think we can learn from that. But in our communication, as we begin to interact with it, I say that because as we begin to enter into these different small groups, and begin to do church and life and, do this whole thing about pursuing after God and living our lives for Him and making Jesus our focal point and putting away the things of the past and trying to forget our sins and working with all these issues, we all of a sudden realize that as we're in these relationships in our small groups, that there may be some tension, there may be some conflict because we got people from different cultures or different, they see things differently, and we might offend someone. And so again, that's a really great example, I think. It can be something simple as communication. And I confess, this stuff is not easy. It's not easy doing any of this stuff. It requires dying to yourself daily. To align your life with God, with God's will, seeking things above. To align yourself with God's will, that's hard. Maybe you have other opportunities made available to you. When I moved out here, I didn't like it out here. I did not like California. That's putting it nicely. And I had job opportunities made available to me in the Chicago area where I come from. And I like Chicago. And I like the four seasons. I like thunderstorms and tornadoes and lightning. And I like all that stuff. Like, ooh, and I mean, I was beginning to have these withdrawal symptoms. Like, oh man, I want to go back. And I was getting these job offers out there, and I had no job offers out here. I mean, everything is looking bad for me. And as I was praying about it, I felt like God says, no, stay here. To align your life with God, with God's will, is very hard because God may ask you to do something that you don't think you want to do, but in the end, it's going to really help you out. You realize in the end, like, wow, God, thank you so much for keeping me from that or from telling me to do this, although I complained the whole way and kicked and screamed. It's not easy. It's not easy to keep pressing on when you're still struggling with that same sin that you've been struggling with for over 10 years and you're still struggling with it and there doesn't seem to be any progress. And you're like, God, you just want to give up and I want to forget this Christianity stuff. And some people do. Some people just forget it and walk away. It's so hard to keep pressing in when you have that same struggle year after year after year. It's not easy. It's not easy to do all of this stuff in a context of different cultures. Because now all of a sudden you got much more conflict, much more miscommunication. But then if you quit, if you bail out, you miss just the wonderful blessings that God has. Just all the favor that God may want to give you. Logically, at times, this stuff cannot be done. It takes faith. It takes something that we don't have. Doing all the stuff that I talked about. So will you guys choose to accept and ask for faith to do what God has spoken here in His Word? And I guarantee you it's going to be kind of scary and it's going to be hard. But it's worth it because you're going to have God's favor on your life. You're going to have God's blessing, His provision for you. He is going to take care of you. Will you guys choose to be a generation that's going to stand up against the current of everyone else of this culture and do what God's called you to do and perhaps change the world too? Who knows?